Hello and welcome to Catamount Community Connection, your weekly one-hour public affairs program here at Catamount Radio. Each week we talk with community leaders from the business, professional, nonprofit, and political arenas. Our show brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. And yes, we are looking forward to the 180th Vermont State Fair coming up in August this summer. And as soon as I know who's going to appear, I'll let you know on this show. We're going to have Robert Congdon on at some point in the near future. We're going to talk today with Dave Allaire, who is currently the board president of the Rutland Board of Aldermen, and I believe will be also continuing to be the board president. This show will air on the 22nd of March, so by that time we'll know. But we're going to have to sort of hedge a little bit. But I believe that Dave will be the board president. And, of course, by then the mayor will be Tom Donahue. That ceremony actually, this is complicated when you record it a week ahead. It's actually happening today, the swearing-in ceremony of Tom Donahue. So, Dave, first of all, welcome in. You've been I don't know if I say frequent guest, but you've certainly been on before, and it's always good to see you.
Well, I appreciate it, Brian. Yeah, I've been here several times, and there always seems to be plenty of things to talk about. No shortage there today. I think we've got a number of recent events to go over, and today is this is being recorded on the day that Tom is being sworn in this afternoon at 3:00, and I plan on attending, and certainly want to wish him luck in his future endeavors, and we'll be right there alongside him in one fashion or another.
You know, for all the time I've lived, I don't think I've ever been to a swearing-in ceremony of the mayor of the city. Who does the swearing in?
So usually it's the clerk of the city which will perform the swearing in, and usually it's done on the first day after the 15th that the mayor goes to work. So normally it would be on Monday. Tomorrow. Again, we're taping this ahead of time. But Tom wanted it to be on Sunday. He had family members that were going to be otherwise, working and couldn't attend if it was on a Monday. So he's having it on Sunday. So his supporters and his family can be there. And, that's fine. And there should be a great attendance, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. So I want to go over town meeting, which was on March 3rd this year, earlier this month, and just my own sort of personal observations. Rutland City has a registered voter list of, it's a little bit over 11,000, I think, 11,200 and change, something like that. But, and this was a different election, I realized this past town meeting, because it was a write-in, but only 3,276 votes were cast for mayor in this just concluded town meeting. So that means 29%, give or take, of the registered voters voted for mayor, which is unfortunate. Nationally, a high voter turnout in non-presidential years is considered to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 53 or 54%. In non-presidential nomination or elections, Rutland normally only gets 25 to 35%. So again, with the 29% turnout this past March, we fall in line with where we normally are. But I'll be doggone if I can find a way to get more people motivated to get to the polls. I realize, again, this was a little bit different, although I felt that this would actually engender a bit more interest than normal, because there were 2 or 3 viable candidates to be written in, but it didn't really turn out that way. Mayor Donahue got a little over 1,300 votes, which was 40% of the vote total. But again, with only 29% of the total voting, kind of weird. And you had 1,000, which was about 30%. So close enough, I guess. But I don't understand why more people don't vote, I guess. It's just puzzling to me.
Yeah, and we talked an awful lot about that just leading up to the election, long before I decided to jump in, because we were looking very closely at the aldermen's races and wanted to stir up the interest and tried to figure out a way to get more people to the polls, because this has now historically been a turnout issue for years and years. And boy, I wish I had a magic bullet for encouraging people to get out there, because it's 5-10 minutes. It's really not. There's 4 polling places here in the city. We try to make it as convenient as you can. You have absentee opportunities to cast your ballot beforehand if you can't get there that day. And it just doesn't seem to be a way to get more people involved, and that's puzzling to me. And I guess Rutland's not the only one, but we certainly are one of the larger communities in Vermont. What happens here in the city is very important to the whole county.
Yep.
Has effects on how everything happens here in the whole Rutland County area. So I don't know, Brian. You and me can put our heads together, but I'm just not sure there's a way to do it.
And I sit on the Government Operations Committee in the Senate, and we have made it, in my opinion, as easy as you could possibly make it, short of allowing people to go online and vote, which I would absolutely not be in favor of. Although it'll come up next year, you watch. It'll be a bill that will be put forward that, there are enough people that, I don't know why, but can't get to the poll or can't mail it. And again, town meeting is an exception. There aren't mailed-in ballots for town meeting. But in the primary and general elections, every couple of years, you get a ballot in the mail, and all you got to do is put a stamp on it. Maybe you don't even have to know. I think it's pre-posted or prepaid for, and stick it back in the mail. So I don't know what else we can do to make it any easier. It isn't like we're making it a horrible job to get out to the polls and vote. But more people don't vote than do by quite a big margin. And yet, if you get on social media, it seems like a lot of people complain about what's going on, but they're not willing to put their, vote on the line. So I'm as puzzled as you are, but I just wanted to mention that. So
yeah, I'm glad you did mention that, because that's really a huge issue, going forward. There seemed to be, as I was going around town talking to people, more interest in this because of the unusual circumstances. The fact that the mayor's race was a write-in. It was such a short period of time. There was, 12 or 13 candidates for the Board of Aldermen. So just anecdotally, we were thinking, the turnout might be better. But as the day progressed and we were standing at the polls, it just didn't seem to turn out that way. So yeah. I don't know if it was, people thought, maybe we already know what the outcome's going to be, or who knows? I'm just not sure.
Well, we fell again in line with what we normally do. Somewhere between 25 and 35% of registered eligible voters are the only ones that go to the polls or get them there somehow and are able to exercise their right. And I think it's a duty. I don't think it's a right. I think it's a duty to vote, to get yourself off the couch. And if you need a ride, that's always available. People willing to pick people up. It amazes me that they don't. But anyway, I'm not going to linger on that for too much longer. You were mayor for 6 years, just ahead of our now past mayor, Mike Dunches, and then been on the board and has served as president of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, and will again in the upcoming year. And then the other one, and I didn't realize this, we had Tom Donahue on the last week, and he mentioned that he gets to pick his successor, even though it, again, has to go to the full board. And I think there's you put it up on the agenda, and then you wait a couple of weeks, and then you come back and vote whether or not to accept his replacement. And he's picked Barry Beauchamp, a well-known name in the area, ran a pharmacy for many years. And he was also on the board, I believe, back in the, I don't know if it was 80s or 90s.
It was in the 90s. Actually, He was on the board when I first got elected in 98.
And I remember him from playing hockey at Rutland High School. They beat us a few times, the Otters, so I didn't particularly hold him in fond memory because he scored a couple of the winning goals. But anyway, he's a wonderful guy and a good business guy, and I think that's important. And when we had Tom Donahue on last week, he did mention that he didn't say who it was going to be at that point, but he said he had someone in mind who would be good for economic development, because that was Tom's number one priority, is to continue to develop the region economically with good business. And so I think he's right. I think Barry will be very well received. We can't say he's on the board yet because, again, it takes 2 weeks, but we'll find out soon enough. We're talking with Dave Allaire, who is the Board of Aldermen President, and we want to talk again about one of the things that happens on town meeting, of course, is budgets. And the city of Rutland put forth a budget when you voted, if you're a city resident, $27,490,000 for a municipal budget. And I want to talk to Dave Allaire about that. And then the other one, the school budget, which is normally quite a bit higher. In some communities, it's probably more like 70-30, 70% for property taxes in terms of the education piece of it, and then 30% for municipal. So the Rutland City one was just shy of $70 million, $69,836,000, and that was reflective of about a average cost per pupil of $12,660, which is up about 3.8% from the previous year. So I want to kind of peel back, not the education one, because you have nothing to do with that really, but the municipal side, we could talk about what's in that $27 million budget and how you felt about how everything went. I will say that we will be buying down the property tax rate to some degree. Not sure still. It'll be over $100 million of one-time money that we somehow miraculously continue to find in the state budget. We can't keep doing it, though, folks. It's just not sustainable, but we will be buying it down. So I don't know whether that 3.8% increase in the education property tax in Rutland City will hold up at 3.8, or whether it'll be higher or whether it'll be lower. I don't know. Rutland City has a little bit more of an advantage than some of the surrounding areas because they have more poorer kids, more kids that have English as a second language and are economically in a different group than a lot of the other ones. So that counts in a positive way to keep the property taxes lower. But we'll find out about that as we move along in the rest of the legislative session. Let's talk about the municipal side, though, Dave, if you want. We have all kinds of city contracts in there and paving and employee costs and all that kind of stuff. So I was happy that both of them passed, I guess. I'm in Rutland Town, so I don't have a voice in the city, but I also went to the Rutland Town meeting and expressed my support for the school board there. Thought they did a very good, fiscally responsible job advancing a school budget that was up incrementally. But again, we get caught up in the way that we fund it for the whole state. So it's not going to be, I think Rutland's was only 1-point-something% the town, but it's going to go up probably more than that. Anyway, the municipal budget and the school budget passed in every county or every city in the county except for Otter Valleys and Fair Havens. Those are the two school districts where the budgets failed, and they're going to have to come back, the school boards involved, with new proposals. So let's talk a little bit about the municipal budget in the city.
Yeah, so the in the city here, with those two budgets that you have mentioned, the municipal budget, I think, passed by a comfortable margin. And, going back a little bit, 3 or 4 months, as you recall, what happens, the way this process goes, is the mayor will present that budget to the Board of Aldermen around the 1st of November, and then the board goes through a committee process over the next 6 weeks, and hopefully up or down, passes that along and then presents it to the voters in March. What happened this year was the mayor decided to present a budget that was up considerably. It was 12%, which is a lot.
Yep.
And it was too much for us being the Board of Aldermen, to swallow, and I think the taxpayers at the same time voiced their displeasure with us as we went around and talked to people around town. We went through a rigorous process during that month and a half and got to the point where, when we had our final budget meeting, decided, you know what, this is still too much. At the time, I think it was 7 or 8%. I forgot what the number exactly was. But we decided to send it back to the mayor and say, look, you got to find some more savings. And he did, and he brought it back to us at the very end of the year between Christmas and New Year's. And we managed to bring that down to, I guess it was an acceptable rate. It was still a lot, 6% or whatever it ended up being. So there was still a considerable increase there. Some of it out of our control, fixed costs, contracts with the unions and city workers, but still a lot. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm hoping that as we go forward, now that we have a new person in place, or will have later today, that we can look at cutting costs, but paring back municipal employees, trying to get rid of some of the not just folks, but some of the spending that I do not see that is necessary, and bring it in line on a year-to-year basis that is sustainable and that city voters or city taxpayers can afford, because we're again one of the highest taxed communities in the state. That's not a desirable place to be as far as I'm concerned. We want to be able to provide the city services that everybody wants, public works, city fire, all cost money, but do it at a sustainable level. So I'm hoping going forward that that's where we can be. I've talked to the incoming mayor quite a bit. I think he is coming from the same place. And, of course, he's there for 1 year. It's not a 2-year term. He's going to have to, if he desires, to run again in March. But talking with him and getting a feel for where he is, he's of the same place. So municipal side, we'll be moving forward, something we have under our control. Because, like you said, there are things in there that we need to do. We need to do the paving. We need to do, the municipal contracts. Health insurance a lot of times is out of our control. So those things will continue. On the education side, which is more your bandwidth, and the school board side, $70 million is a lot of money to spend educating a population of school kids here in the city, which is the same throughout the state, is declining. And, how long can you go doing that? I'm not sure how long.
Well, certainly we've had many days of discussion at the State House about how we tackle that problem. But you're right, we have a dwindling student population. If you look even at pre-K up through high school, we're now at about 80,000 kids. And I think that's a fairly good number. I've heard 82, but I've heard 78. So I'll say somewhere around 80,000. Back when I was a little bit younger, we had over 110,000 students in our schools. That was before pre-K. That was just K through high school. And so the costs then seemed to be able to be borne by the taxpayers. But every year since, it's gone down by a little bit. And the projection, at least from the Agency of Education, is that we'll be at about 77,000. So we're going to lose 3,000 more students by 2030. Now, whether that's a bottoming out and then we begin to move up again, I don't know. Obviously, that will depend on how many more people move into the state and how many of those families that move in have kids in the school system. Every single time that you can get someone to do that, the burden gets shouldered by more people, which brings the tax rate down. So that's what we hope that will happen, is we'll continue to attract people to move into the state and take advantage of, our school system. Unfortunately, we don't have a great reputation, I don't think, nationally about the taxes. So I think we're viewed as a very high tax state, and we are, depending on how you look at things and what poll you look at and all that. We're somewhere around the third or fourth most tax state in the country. And some of that is education. Some of it's something else. If you run a business, you certainly get a lot of what you would have as profit taken away before the end of the day. So, yeah, those are puzzling sorts of things. The governor wanted to wind up with 5 school districts. That, I think he knew, was not going to happen. Larry Coopely, by the way, for years had proposed 1 school district for the whole state. I think it's Hawaii right now that has 1. And New York City has one, and the population of New York City is way higher than the whole state of Vermont. And I'm talking school kids. So I don't know where it's going to fall, somewhere in between probably. I don't know how Rutland County is going to be, quote, divvied up, whether it will follow along a western side and an eastern side or a north and a south. I don't know the answer to that. But I think people made it pretty clear with their votes in the last general election that they were feeling a lot of pressure to get something done and fix the school system. And, you know, it remains to be seen what that fix is. The governor's made it pretty clear in his budget address that he will not sign a budget until the school situation has resolved itself. So that could mean the legislature stays in session for a good long time this year, or maybe feeling that pressure, something will happen quickly in the next few weeks to at least put us on a path to get that taken care of before the end of May, and we can get out of there. So, yeah, those are important questions, and I don't have the answers for it. Two of the Rutland County senators happen to sit on the Senate Education Committee. I'm not one of them. Senator Weeks and Senator Williams both have a lot of say in that committee. There are 6 members of that committee, and they have a lot of input, as I say. So we'll have to see how that develops, but hopefully we can figure a way, and it's not going to happen overnight, folks. You're still going to face increasing costs. I can guarantee it almost for next year and the year after, but maybe by FY28, we'll see the curve begin to bend a little bit, and we'll bring those costs down. Anyway, enough of me talking.
Yeah, so just a little bit more on the 2 questions before the city, the municipal side and the education side. Historically, the city of Rutland has passed just about every budget that I've been involved in, and I'm going on close to 30 years now in one capacity or another here in the city, the Board of Aldermen or as mayor. But I will note that this year, while the municipal budget passed pretty comfortably, the school budget, it did pass, but it was much closer vote. And so that tells me that people are beginning to realize that, you know, the spending is something that's got to be controlled. Because, again, historically, both those questions have passed pretty comfortably. But this time, the school budget was much closer. And if, you know, that trend continues, spending continues like that, I wouldn't be surprised that at some point, even here in the city, that, you know what, the city voters say, enough's enough. And, you know, you're going to have to come back with something lower or do something. And I think it's been a long time since that's happened here in the city. You mentioned Outer Valley. That budget did not pass Outer Valley and over in Fairhaven. Fairhaven has been a tough place to pass school budgets here recently. But Outer Valley has usually passed theirs. And my wife teaches in that district, the Rutland Northeast Supervisor Union in Pittsford. And she's in her last year, and she's going to be retiring. But, you know, that's I think they've, you know, opened their eyes. And they've said, you know what, enough's enough. You know, bring me something back that I can support. And I want to, you know, take care of our kids. We all want to support the kids in the schools. You know, you hear that all the time.
Sure.
But at a cost that's reasonable. So just a little history on here in the city.
Yeah. We're talking with the Rutland City Board of Aldermen President Dave Allaire, and we're going to take our first break here on Catamount Community Connection. We'll be back with Dave in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. It's a 1-hour show that we do every week on all 5 of the Catamount radio stations. I'm Brian Collamore, your host, and the program is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair in Rutland. Since 1846, the 180th Vermont State Fair will be coming up this August, and it will be in conjunction with the 250th birthday of the United States of America. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm thinking that we'll get record-breaking attendance at this year's fair. Certainly looking forward to it. We're talking today with Rutland City Board of Aldermen President Dave Allaire, and he has just been reconfirmed as the board president. Barry Beauchamp will possibly be Tom Donahue's replacement on the Board of Aldermen, pending a couple weeks delay, which is just a process that normally happens when someone is suggested as an appointment. You put it on the agenda for a couple weeks and then come back and either confirm or not. I can't imagine in this case that Barry won't be joining the 10 other members of the board, but we'll see. Is it 10 or 13? Now
it's 11 altogether.
11, yeah. Okay, so
10, yeah.
the 10 other ones.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit, unfortunately, about I don't want to know, I don't know if it's possible to say apathy, but a lot of people just don't vote. And I don't know whether they don't think their vote counts or whether they consider that to be sort of a finger in your eye statement by not voting, but I think it's unfortunate. And so we only had about 29% of the registered voters in Rutland City turn out for town meeting. Some of the other towns have higher percentages of interested voters, and some, I guess, maybe have even less interest. But anyway, it was about 29%, which falls within the normal range in Rutland City for non-presidential years. Somewhere between 25 and 35% of voters turn out for town meeting in those years. But I want to talk a little bit about the process running up to this one, because, 3 weeks ago now at town meeting, this was a different situation than normally would happen. This was a write-in. I mean, the budget and all the articles were obviously on the ballot. You either voted yes or no. But the city mayor's race was decided by a write-in. And I know, Tom Donahue, who is now the mayor of the city, got into it early. He told us on the air a week ago that he was called by Gordon Dricillo from the Rutland Herald. He was in his Bennington office at Brock Community Action, and Gordon was the one that told him that Mayor Dunches had just resigned, and that was the first he'd heard about it. So within, I want to say, a few hours of that, maybe it was the next day, but I have a feeling it was even later that same day, he announced that he would be happy to be a write-in candidate, and then followed a couple of weeks of sort of who else is in it, who said yes, who said no. You got into it, I think, next, Dave, in chronological terms. And then there were some other people that I didn't really, to be fair, and I like the guy, Chris Loris, I didn't really understand the signs that went up about take your pick. It took me a while maybe to even understand what that meant. And then I wasn't sure whether he was a candidate or not. He didn't seem to say, I want the job, but he said if people want to write me in, that would be okay. And Henry Heck was also one of those that came in rather late. But talk about that process, if you would.
Yeah, so the former mayor now tendered his resignation, I think, at the end of January. So that left you about 4 to 5 weeks to conduct a mayoral campaign, as it turns out, a write-in campaign. And, the turnout, what it is what it was. I accept the results. I'm going to be glad to support the incoming mayor. Now, once this airs, it will be Mayor Donahue. We think alike on a lot of things. We both obviously want to see the city succeed, and both have tenured long terms. Me in city government, Tom with Brock and the chamber before that, and we've known each other personally for a long time. So I look forward to a lot of success, I hope, for the city, and I will do everything I can to see him succeed and the city succeed. But the process is where I really am disheartened in a lot of ways, because our former mayor left us with really a can of worms, to tell you the truth. Nobody really knew or had experienced a write-in campaign. a campaign for mayor in such a short period of time. There were really no debates. There was no time for fundraising. Nobody really knew who the viable candidates were going to be, or if there were going to be any other than Tom. And it just left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and it left a bad taste in my mouth as far as the process. Now, there was an opportunity a couple weeks before the election where our former mayor, Chris Lurs, came into the Board of Aldermen with a proposal to, accept Mayor Dungis's resignation, but change the date. And the date would have been changed to the day after town meeting this year, where, according to charter, the board president, no matter who he is or she is, would serve out that term until the next mayoral election. Mm-hmm. And that's where I believed it should have gone. And I think, and it wasn't just because it was me, but it was just because that's the way it's laid out in our charter. And, we ended up having to go out to get an attorney's, decision or, recommendation. And he saw otherwise, because there's the charter, again, like a lot of state laws, they can be a little bit ambiguous, and depending on where you pick out where you want to read, how it all turns out. So anyway, a long story short, we ended up with the write-in campaign. It is what it is. Certainly accept the results. I'm very pleased with the fact that I didn't get in until 2 weeks before the election. I had a trip planned 6 months in advance to see my grandchild out in Nevada, which there was no way that I could not do that. And I went ahead and did it. And I'm glad I did, because I only see her a 3 times a year. But I didn't have a chance to really campaign. And I got 1,000 votes. And I had a lot of people come up to me before, during, and after the election, thanking me for getting in, giving people a choice. And I feel really good about that. So, where we're taping this, it's a day before the Board of Aldermen meeting, where we actually take a vote on who the board president is going to be. I have been lucky enough to talk to every board member, and almost unanimous. Looks like people are going to support me in that role. So once this airs, it looks like I will continue to be the board president. I'm very honored for that. I want to thank my board for their support. Thank the people of the city of Rutland for their support and their words of encouragement that they've given me over the last few weeks. So all in all, we took a tough situation, and it turned out okay. So we will move forward. Perhaps at some point we can take a look at that charter, and maybe there's a way to change that so this doesn't happen again. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that I ran through that and how I feel about things and how the community feels. And, I'm going to support Tom right through, and we're going to be fine.
I was going to ask you about a charter change. If you had moved the date by a day, that would have solved the problem this time. But you can never predict whether there'd be a death or an incapacitation of some sort that would prevent a sitting mayor from continuing. So I think it would be hard to, I don't know how you'd make the charter better in the sense of making it really clear what should happen given X, Y, and Z. To me, it seems, but I haven't seen the charter, so I don't know. But I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. And, I'm not sure if it would be as simple as just saying, okay, upon, a death, resignation, or whatever circumstance happens to come along, that the board president would serve out until the next mayoral election rather than the next town meeting or next election. Yep. And that would, I think, clarify that. And, I think most people, as Mayor Lurs had mentioned up at the podium that night, that there aren't too many people that don't think that, well, I'm sure there's some, but the board president, amongst his many duties, not just presiding over the board meetings and setting committees and that sort of thing, he stands in when the mayor is on vacation or incapacitated, or which is, happened, previous years. I was diagnosed with cancer during my term, and I had underwent surgery over at Dartmouth, and for 3 weeks I was out of the office, and the board president, Matt Wickham at the time, stepped in, and that's the way it's set up for. And maybe there could be some clarification. Who knows? The charter can be read in various ways.
And it seems like, if I'm not mistaken, we just changed Rutland City's charter a couple years ago, not with respect to how we elect a mayor. I'm trying to remember. There were a couple other things that we changed, because I remember voting on it and actually reporting it on the floor, but I'll be doggone if I can remember what those changes were. Anyway, it always comes to the government operations committees in both the House and the Senate when a municipality wants to change their charter. The reason for that, in case anybody is interested, is Vermont is what is called or known as a Dillon state. So we don't have the ability for a municipality to make its own rules, so to speak. You don't have any power until the General Assembly grants you that authority. So every time you want to try to do something, you got to go through a charter change, and it has to be approved by both the House, the Senate, and, of course, the governor has to sign off as well. So I'm not talking, something as inconsequential as where to put a stop sign up on a road. That you can control locally. But, whether there's 5 or 7 members of a select board or whether there's 11, all of that has to go through the charter change, which is overseen by the General Assembly. So many people don't like that. Most of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns don't like it because they would be able to move around and change things in a much more easy fashion if we weren't a Dillon state, but we are, and it probably will be near impossible to change that, at least anytime soon. So if you want to change the charter in the city, you probably ought to see somebody about that. I don't know if it's too late this year. Crossover is passed, but charters are in that sort of gray area where I think you can always put a charter in, even really, really late in the session, and as long as it's taken up, you can get things changed. But for the moment, we have a new mayor, and we have the continuation of you as board president, and hopefully Barry Beauchamp gets in and joins the other members. You mentioned one of the things that the mayor does is committee assignments, and I know we have a brand new alderman that just won election on town meeting day. The other ones were reelected, so I don't know what the procedure would be to leave them in their standing committees or move them somewhere else, but all of that has yet to be decided, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's true. Every year, the board reorganizes. They elect a board president as their first action. So that's coming up on Monday night. Now, again, this is going to be this past Monday when this airs.
Right.
But that board president has control over the committee assignments. So we did have a couple of committee chairs who have left. One was Tom Donahue. Obviously, he's now the mayor. He was chair of Community and Economic Development. And Matt Wickham, who failed at being reelected, he was chair of finance. So those two spots are going to have to be filled by either existing alderman or somebody new or whatever. So there is going to be a reshuffling of the committees. Try not to do too much of that just for stability's sake, and especially some of these important committees which are overseeing in finance. Obviously you oversee the budget and the spending and all that sort of stuff. But Community and Economic Development oversees a lot of the projects that are going on as far as the overall project. Public Works, the spending on sidewalks and roads, paving, and a couple of the bigger projects that are going on. And I will, for example, the hotel and the associated costs that go with that. that is a private developer that's doing that, but the city is totally involved because of a lot of the underground utility work that needs to be done to support the hotel and the reconfiguration of Center Street. So a lot of big decisions are going to be coming our way in the next few months, and so having the right people in those spots, I think, are key. So.
And I don't know, but what on occasion, because the General Assembly sort of works similarly, the Speaker of the House is the one that decides who gets to be chair of the, I don't know how many standing committees. In the Senate, we have 11 standing committees. I think the House has a couple more, so maybe they have 13 or 14. And then who those members will be, although once you've decided on the chair, it's sort of considered common courtesy to call the chair and say, who would you like to have on your committee? And for the most part, it gets rubber stamped. On the Senate side, this is a really strange turn of a phrase. The Committee on Committees is the one that decides in the Senate who's the chair and who the members are. And that committee are 3 people. The lieutenant governor automatically gets a vote. Usually it's the pro tem, but it doesn't have to be. And then the third person is usually the majority leader or someone from the majority party who is considered well-rounded and, an authority figure of some sort. So for the moment, it's Lieutenant Governor John Rogers, Senator Phil Baruth from Chittenden County, and Senator Ginny Lyons, also from Chittenden County. And those are the 3 that decide who's going to be chair and who's going to be on the committees. But on occasion, and I don't know that this happens at the local level, if someone has not performed as a chair in the way that committee on committees or the speaker, because he or she has full authority on the House side, they haven't performed to their satisfaction, they can be removed and someone else reappointed. So I didn't know if anybody's ever come to the board president and said, I thought I was going to really have a good time with this blank committee, but I'm really not enjoying it, and I'd like to have somebody else go on that, even midstream. I don't know. Maybe it happens and maybe it doesn't. Or for some reason, somebody goofs up and then, they're, I don't want to say punished, but they're sent someplace else.
It's funny you should say that. I don't want to give anybody any ideas. So, but no, in my tenure, I don't believe I've ever come across that so much. I mean, people do complain once in a while about, if there's a frequency of committee, if a committee is meeting so often that it's taken them away from their daytime job or that sort of thing. But not anything that's been so severe where they've asked, this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
So thankfully that doesn't happen.
We're talking with Rutland City Board President Dave Allaire, and we're going to take our second break here on Catamount Community Connection. We'll be back with Dave in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. I'm Brian Collamore, your weekly host of the program, and we talk with various members of the community each and every week. We're talking today with the president of the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. I don't know why we call it the Board of Aldermen, but Burlington calls it the City Council. But I think they're similar in many, many ways. Anyway, Dave Allaire is with us today. And one of the things that we began to sort of nudge up against was some big-time stuff that's happening, especially in the downtown area of the city. We have a brand-new hotel that will be beginning to be built this spring and summer. Probably won't be completed until the year after. And then across the street at the Paramount Theater, also a huge renovation project underway. Unfortunately, as you dig up streets, it's going to have inconvenience for some of the workers, some of the shoppers, some of the retail establishments there. But it will all go for a really great ending, I think. And when that thing is opened up, I expect there'll be a party that may last for a couple of days because it's really a big deal. You and I have both been in Rutland when the Berwick Hotel burned on that very spot, and then we affectionately named that area the Pit. and it was that way for 50 years, and it's only now changing. And the work has already started. They've knocked down a part of what used to be the newsroom at the Rutland Herald, and they'll begin to actually, you'll see a lot more activity as soon as the frost is out of the ground. But what a great moment I think this is for Rutland, Dave.
Yeah, I agree. The Beldens were talking about that project and that piece of property when I was still mayor, and we had met with them a couple of times. And, I held out a lot of hope that it was going to be able to move forward. And for a number of different reasons, it has, not the least of which is the TIF program and associated attributes that go along with that, and just the fact that it seemed as though city government, the business folks, the community at large saw an opportunity there and jumped on it and supported the Beldens in the state, for that matter. They've really stepped in and helped too. So it was a community project. I'm so happy it's going forward. You mentioned across the street at the Paramount. I've had a chance to take a tour over there and all the great things that they've done, and what a tremendous venue that is for bringing people downtown and shopping and going to the restaurants and everything that's associated with that. So my hat's off to everybody associated at the Paramount. And you're right, there is going to be some disruption downtown, and probably over the summer and through this construction season and into next year. But it's all for a tremendous cause, and I think most people down there understand that. And the business people, the shop owners, talked to quite a few of them, not all of them, but I've talked to quite a few of them, and they know that what's coming. We're going to try to make it as less of a disruption as we possibly can, so people can still, access those businesses. But there's going to be some, and but to watch that hotel rise from the ground up, especially after all these years and all the attempts that has been made to develop that property, because there have been several, and even during my tenure as mayor, there was one that we thought was viable, but just didn't come to fruition, and I think it was COVID related, and but for whatever reason, this is going to happen. And my hat's off to the Beldens and to, all the people that have supported what they're doing, and the community leaders here in the city. My the previous mayor, previous members of the Board of Aldermen, current members of the board, and now the incoming mayor. He's Tom Donahue is all supportive of this, and I certainly am. And we're looking forward to having that open here in the next, I don't know, maybe 24 to 36 months.
Yeah,
it'll be a little while, but what a tremendous asset it's going to be, not just for the hotel rooms, but there's going to be housing involved. There's a restaurant on top. What a draw for downtown Rutland.
I would hope, if people know who Kent Belden is and his family, and they see him around, they would thank him, because that family took a big risk in putting up a lot of the capital to get this progress, or get this project started. Now, the TIF district helped. There's no question about that, and we probably couldn't have done it without it. There's no question about that. But they really had to step up to the plate, and they are to be commended for that. And like I said, I think when it's done, we're going to have a good old-fashioned Rutland party for a while. As I recall, it's 7 floors, and as you mentioned, Dave, there's a restaurant on the top floor, and it's high enough so you'll be able to see above most of what else is in downtown. Not sure how high the service building is, but it might be similar height. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be great. And that combined with the Paramount, because a lot of times the Paramount, according to information I had from folks that ran that, would have been able to book sort of bigger name acts if they had a place for them to stay after the performance. And unfortunately, we didn't. Short of driving 50 miles somewhere. So this will provide them with an added ingredient of attraction, I think, for pulling in some pretty big name acts, to say nothing of the weekly offerings at the Paramount. And that is just such a well-run organization. Eric Millette does a great job there, and it's going to really be amazing. And then the third piece of this, after we've dug the street up, put the new power and water and sewer in, is across where Walmart is now, and that is going to eventually go up to Rutland Town's old mall. I guess it's still called the old mall. I think of the one on Woodstock Avenue as the old mall, but anyway. And that will come later on, and that decision has not been made as to what that's going to be. Is it going to be more than one story, the way it is now? Will it be some retail and some office space? Don't know. We don't own it. I think it's Brixmore that is the company that holds the paper on that. So, but that could eventually also be a big deal. And then you've got the train service right there where people could literally leave New York City, be in Rutland a couple hours later, and then stay at the hotel and go skiing or whatever they want to do. So I think it's going to be a big change for Rutland, and it's all going to be very positive. I think there's no doubt about that. I know the VFW Post will be painting their building, and they're really excited about that. And they've raised enough money, I think, to do that. And then the question was, should we wait till all the dust is sort of settled before we do it? And I think they're still going to go ahead and do it this spring, and I'm looking forward to that. So there's some really swell people that I see at the VFW Post on occasion.
Yeah, I'm
too.
glad you brought up the Walmart relocation, because I was going to mention that before we were through today. That's a big deal, too, because they're the anchor, them and Price Chopper, of that whole shopping plaza. And if you notice, here recently, there has been some vacancies.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if that's in lieu of the fact that they know the Walmart's leaving, or if it's just a normal attrition, and the changing of the guard. I'm really not sure. But there has been quite a few conversations going on about what happens when Walmart does leave. And you mentioned Brixmore. They are the property owners. They ultimately are going to be the ones that decide what happens and what doesn't. Now, I know there's been some limited discussion with the city in Brixmore. Another group has been meeting outside of the Board of Aldermen about different ideas that could go in there, which I am not exactly thrilled about, and I'll tell you why. It's because the board and we have not been a party to those conversations, and I think that that's something that's going to have to change too. And again, my conversations with Tom Donahue is that those kinds of discussions are going to happen within city government. I mean, we need to be a major player in that. If we have an opinion about what's going to go on over there, then we need to be the ones that are voicing that opinion along with the business community and others who are interested. Now, it's also my understanding that there has been some interest from some outside groups. VNRC is one of them, who were involved in the original relocation of Walmart into the downtown, who want to play a role in what's going to happen with that property once Walmart leaves. And these are just things that I have found out very recently, and there will be more discussions to come. But some of that is kind of concerning, and I hope they play a positive role. But again, that is going to be a tremendous opportunity, not only for Walmart, because I think everybody wants to see a Walmart Supercenter be successful and redo that dilapidated piece of property that's down there in Rutland Town, the old Diamond Run Mall. But to have a really viable tenant, hopefully a retail tenant in that Walmart space. So more to come. It should be an interesting discussion.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather be talking to business leaders like the business, the state chamber of commerce than VNRC. I don't envision that they would be particularly enthusiastic about certain things that I'd like to see done there, and that's unfortunate. And I hadn't heard that until now. But anyway, we'll see we'll see how the discussions ensue on that. But yeah, if we could get, and however you want to do it, a mixture of retail and office, if you want to put a second floor up, I think that would be great. You know, the downtown and the Walmart have gotten along pretty well so far. We have sort of those boutique type situations in terms of business downtown that you're not going to get at a big mall kind of thing. So I think they'd be complementary to each other. And I think in the end, everybody makes out better. If we can attract and bring people, more and more people into downtown, I think it would be great. And I think that's a good way to do it. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they will complement each other in the long run. You mentioned Amtrak. It's I don't think people in the city realize how many people actually access Amtrak. Because I'm still on the State Rail Advisory Council, and we keep track of the numbers, and they've held steady or even risen. And so people come from all over the state to grab the Ethan Allen to go down to New York City. And, what an opportunity that is. So we need to build on that, too.
Yep. We have about a minute left. We're talking with Rutland City Board President, City of Aldermen Board President Dave Allaire. And hopefully this will reach ears for those who will be deciding whether Barry Beauchamp is a legitimate member of the board. I think he is. I think he'll do a great job. He's had experience in city government and a business leader. So I hope he's on there. I know you're going to be reappointed or reelected to the board as president. And I certainly wish our new mayor, Tom Donahue, the best. I think he is ready to go. And whether he can get as much done as he hopes to in 1 year, I don't know, which would leave it, up to him to decide, obviously, whether to seek reelection next year at town meeting day. But I think we're poised for some really good, positive things here in the city of Rutland. And as you correctly pointed out earlier, Dave, what happens to the city is important to the county as well. So with that in mind, I thank you for joining us today, and we will definitely have you back soon.
I appreciate it very much, Brian. Have a great day.
We will see all of you next week here on Catamount Community Connection.